everybody. I'm Dave Sims. Welcome to another edition of the Hey Now podcast, along with my sons Jarett and Jordan Sims. Our guest today is the great Dusty Baker. But more on that coming up in a minute. We're Eagles fans. I'm born and raised in Philly. Been going to Eagles games, started going to Eagles games when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. Raised these guys as Eagle fans. And guys, Sirianni, Hurts. Hopefully those two gentlemen, head coach Nick Sirianni, quarterback Jalen Hurts, hopefully they can have a good relationship to start this season. I'm
confident. There's so much on the line, and these guys want to win. They tasted or got so close to tasting Super Bowl victory just a couple of years ago. So I think this is going to be a big season. I think that those guys are saying all the right things in terms of working out their relationship. And they seem like really candid. Like the Philly media is brutal. They make up some stories sometimes that aren't always true, little rumors, and then they guys have to answer to that, but it seems like they're being really candid about working on the relationship, and I'm excited to watch this year.
Yeah, same here. I'm hyped for the season. I really want to see the new coordinators in action. We reading all these articles about how they were dead last in pre-snap motion last year. Like I didn't realize they were last, but not by like 11%. They were below the second to last team. So I'm excited to see Kellen Moore's offense with Saquon in it, all the weapons, and obviously Vic Fangio on defense, and all our draft picks, all our corners, the linebackers should be a lot better. Even when they were winning earlier in the year, it was just like, it was so different from the Super Bowl season. They were just barely scraping by, turnovers, sloppy play. So hopefully all that gets fixed up.
I'd like to see offensive dominance this year. I mean, Kellen Moore has a pretty good reputation as a wide open offensive coordinator. And the fact that, Hurts, if he's healthy, and I think, word is that he is completely healthy. I think that is
he's looking fast. He's looking fast in preseason or training camp, rather. He's looking really quick.
And I hope his accuracy picks up a little bit, and I hope they don't run him as much. I'm not real fond of a whole bunch of, set running plays. The guy has to get out and save his life. I get that. But having him as the lead runner, I don't think you have to worry about that anymore with Saquon.
Ryan Johnson wasn't a very creative OC and was just like running him in ways that didn't make sense. I think, Kellen Moore will keep the threat alive of Jalen's feet, but without as many design runs. I'm excited to see what he does. He's creative.
Not interested in design runs.
Yeah, but in the Super Bowl season, didn't he had several design? No, not as many.
He did have several design
as runs. Last year.
No, I think that the way that it was done last year with Brian Johnson as OC, not creative. And it was always just like he would drop back, a lot of shotgun, and then run up the middle. And that worked. I remember the Colts game, they ended up winning late, and other games. But the Super Bowl year, he ran a lot, but it was out of a lot of RPO action instead of that same quarterback draw that they ran constantly.
The design was good, and having Saquon there, I mean, legit, and keep him healthy. Offensive line seems to be pretty good from what I've been reading here from afar. So I'm looking forward to this season for sure. And I really like their chances in the division. The Giants, I watched a lot of their hard knocks, their preseason hard knocks. That was interesting. It was fascinating to see the inner workings of the team. But more interested, Philly, interested in the Eagles. Absolutely. I'm still in contact with my high school guys, and hey, go Birds.
Yeah, I just want to say it's cute watching the Giants and all their staff get real excited about everything they're doing in the offseason just to go like 3-14 or 4-13. It's real cute. Good for them.
This is going to play well in Philly. I'll tell you that right now. Hey, Dusty Baker's our guest, and even if he wasn't on a Hall of Fame track, it'd be great to meet him. I mean, he's a fascinating guy, terrific life. He knows everybody. It's incredible. And when he got all these gigs that he had, I don't know if a manager who had his longevity or even less than that won seemingly every news conference. He came out of it going, I got to meet this dude. This is a good guy right here. He's funny. He gets it. He's a baseball lifer. He was a good player. A great storyteller, and I thought a conversation with him, it was just to sit back and just let him go.
I know Dusty, now for a number of years, and lucky, that he's a family friend because he did. I remember in my freshman dorm room at GW watching the Giants and Angels play. I think that was 2003, that World Series. I didn't know Dusty then, but was rooting for him like crazy. And, I was bummed with the outcome. And then to all these years later, develop a relationship with Dusty, to where, call him Uncle Dusty. I feel like I'm definitely grateful. And every time I talk to him, there is a new story I haven't heard before. And each one is more interesting or inspiring or fun and unexpected than the last. So it was awesome to have him on.
I remember when he won the World Series and we had him on a show with Coach K. I said, "Who called you?" I said, "Well, somebody named Obama." And they started naming all these, super listing dudes in every
Snoop
facet
Dogg,
of American life. I mean, yeah, right. It was just amazing. I mean,
Eric Clapton.
Eric, that's right. He's a guy, when I talk to the players, and even we talked about this in the interview that's coming up, how he connects so well with people. And that is just a tremendous, tremendous asset. Sit back and enjoy, everybody. Dusty Baker here on the Hey Now podcast. We do this podcast. We love having fun bringing in some of our favorite people in the world. Only 6 managers in baseball history have ever won more games than he did. World Series winner as a player and as a manager, 3-time manager of the year, 3-time pennant winner, 2-time All-Star, that's MVP, 2-time Silver Slugger. Dusty Baker joins us right now. What's up, Bake? Good to see you, man.
Hey, man, I'm glad to see your family, man. This is the first family podcast that I know of, or at least that I've seen and done. You know what I mean? So, hey, I'm proud of you guys as a family.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dusty. As extended family, appreciate you jumping on with us, man.
All right.
It's so funny, Dusty, because their mom, Abby, my wife, she says, "Oh, you guys gonna have Uncle Dusty on?"
Hey, man, you got some dynamite looking pictures back there. I mean, those are beautiful.
You got me as a running back. You got Jarett with Daryl Dawkins. You got Mike Tyson.
Woo. Running back, were you any good?
I was all right. I was a fullback. I could catch a little.
You was a fullback.
Yeah.
Dang, dude, you like to block. You one of them crazy guys then.
Yeah. Car crash every play, man.
Yeah, with your using the big head as the battering ram.
Oh,
Right?
hey, I didn't want to say that, man. You can say it about your dad. I can't say it.
Nah, shit. It's the truth.
Hey, Dusty, you said when you were telling me about your football career, you said, you told me what position you played.
Touchdown.
I love that.
Whether it's offense, defense, kick return, punt return.
Nice.
I love football. I could do almost everything in football except I couldn't kick it. I swear I was just too skinny, I guess, and not strong. I couldn't kick it. And I'd punt and it'd go straight up in the air. And then if I tried to do kickoffs, like it would hurt my leg. So I didn't go on that side of the ball.
So they flanked you out and just told you to go deep and they throw it to you, right?
No, sometime I'd run or sometime I'd throw it,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, back in those days, I mean, if a guy was pretty good, you kind of did everything.
Dusty, I wanted to start off with this. Players Tribune wrote a really nice piece about you, and this quote really jumped out at us. It said, "I've always had that feeling like someone or something has been protecting me and guiding me in certain directions. It's almost like I've been chosen for this exact life."
Mm-hmm.
You want to expand on that? That's a heck of a quote, man.
Well, it's true. I mean, this is how, for a long time, I didn't accept that. And a lot of time, for a long time, you kind of fight those feelings. And, you fight the fact that, hey, man, maybe I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And every time I kind of did what I wanted to do, things would get messed up. And whenever I did whatever I was directed to do, things always, turned out. I always had a protector and a guardian angel. And whether it was fast cars and avoid an accident, whether it was, party and you leave and avoid the cops, or, they raided or whatever happened in life, like in baseball. See, I really didn't want to play baseball.
Is that right?
Football or basketball. Yeah, baseball, I was good at it, but it was like, that's what you played in the spring and summer. Like I ran track too. I tried to be like Bobby Bonds. He was the best. He was from our town of Riverside. He was the best athlete, that I came up with. And Bobby went to the state track meet and track. He played quarterback and defensive back. He played forward on the basketball team. So, I was trying to be Bobby Bonds, but I was kind of chosen for this. I didn't know. Most of my life has been where you turn a negative into a positive, just like my managing career.
Seriously.
Al Campana said some disparaging things about us, and then next thing you know, they're looking for guys to fill those positions, and I happen to be at the right place at the right time. Myself, Baylor, Hal McRae, and Cito, because we had just retired at that time. Well, the same way in baseball. My parents got divorced. I was oldest of 5. They wanted me to go. I could have gone to Washington State. I can't remember if I was going to play basketball or football up there. None of them wanted me for baseball. I didn't have none.
All right. Wow.
No, I didn't have one. And so, but back then, like they weren't hardly giving scholarships either. To African Americans and in baseball. And so,
right? Big 60s,
yeah.
late 60s. Yeah.
And so what happened was I didn't want to, my dad wanted me to go to Santa Clara, which is a predominantly white school that I had just come from in high school my last 2 years, because there's only 2 black kids in high school, me and my brother.
I know that feeling. I've done that.
Yeah, and then there was one black girl in the junior high, my sister, that fed the high school, and there was 2 blacks in the elementary that fed the junior high, and those are my brothers and sisters. So, I just wanted a more, culturally diverse place to go. Also, I didn't want to study that hard, even though my parents were about education. I was about, when you're young, you want to have a good time. And
Sure.
so, they got divorced. I said my prayers. And then I woke up the next day and it said, hey, man, go ahead and sign and try to help your family.
That's pretty remarkable. Hey, so the baseball connection. So you weren't playing college baseball or anything like that. So what was that?
No, I wanted to play college baseball,
Uh-huh.
Because I couldn't just see me playing one sport.
Yeah.
My dad had asked me to, when I was in 8th grade, to try to make up my mind which sport I wanted to play, and I couldn't, because I liked them all and I was pretty good at it, most of them.
Did he make you choose one, and you wanted to be like, what Dion ended up being and Bo Jackson?
Well, he wanted me to choose one, probably go get a job and help him work. But, my dad was very, very supportive. My dad worked 2 jobs for 36 years. And, he worked for he was a civilian working for the Air Force. And then he always had a side job, whether it was cutting lawns or worked at Sears selling. My dad always had 2 jobs forever. And, but the one thing my dad did for 5 of us, 5 kids, he always gave us everything that we needed and some of the things that we wanted. And so, both my parents are hardworking, and all they wanted us to do in return was stay out of trouble and try to be something in life.
Having that feeling that somebody or something was always protecting you, was that something that has its origins with your parents, or is it something more spiritual and that developed over time? What's the origin?
No, that developed over time. The more times you get out of trouble, the more times you avoid trouble or avoid this or avoid that. And then you start realizing, because even now, like my son, I remember he was like, Darren's 25 now. He might have been 4 or 5 years old. And, he'd see a homeless person on the street. And, he would remind me, I don't know how he knew, but he feels the same way. He would remind me, Dad, give him some money. And I'd say, okay, why? And he'd say, because, you don't know, that person could be an angel. And he's telling the truth, because it says in the Bible that, angels don't make themselves apparent who they are. They just guide and protect you. And like I said, I've been guided and protected, dozens of times. And so, I'm trying not to put pressure on whoever my guardian is. They've been pretty good so far. You can only run out so many times, so, but, that now I feel like kind of it's my turn to try to help people and along the way. And especially being 75, you think about it, because usually I don't do articles myself. I don't have a book yet or anything like that, but it's like there are a lot of people out there that, that kind of need to hear that it's not a hopeless situation for, for themselves. Because there are a lot of people that are, that are unhappy or don't have much joy.
Dusty, you mentioned turning negatives into a positive. I'm curious, and when you think about people that have felt that hopelessness, I mean, personally, I've felt that myself, and I've had some of my own medical issues, and I definitely was in that spot for a long time. Do you have any advice for those people who are feeling that way, and how to turn things around?
Well, I mean, I've been in that situation myself. I mean, there are a couple of times in my life after I got divorced myself, and I had government after me, and I was like, man, this is a hopeless situation, and what do I do? And I my brother who died 5 years ago now, he was our finance guy. I mean, he was a brilliant young man, but I believe that one of the worst emotions that there is guilt. And if you can remove guilt, because guilt, man, never lets you, never leaves you alone. It follows you to sleep. It follows you in the morning when you get up. And guilt is what I think we've had some medical issues in my family too, especially my brother, because he was a manic depressant for 35 years, the last 35 years. So, he was in a homeless situation, and, it was tough, but, my thing is that you got to depend on somebody other than yourself, try not to lean on your own understanding, and realize that, that there are powers out there that help you, regardless of who you believe in or what you believe in, as long as it's on the right side of the belief cycle, that everything is going to work out. I mean, my dad told me years ago, he said, son, when you're in a dark place or whatever it is, and we've all been there, he says, you got to look for that pinhole of light someplace and follow that light. Next thing you're out in the sunshine. But if you just give up, you have no chance of ever even seeing that light, because there is a way out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a way out of everything, which I believe you just got to recognize it, make your move, and then try to do the right.
That's powerful stuff. When did you think? At what point did you feel like you had it? Maybe not solved, but certainly when you got through that pinhole.
When I started, it's gone up and down.
Yeah, for sure.
When I was a player, man, things are great, and then get divorced, things are bad, and then things go up and down. But probably when I got the Cub job as with the Cubs, because then everything was cleared up, everything was in the past, except my brother Vic, which I was there to try to help him. But probably when I got, because the Cubs was a negative situation for me too.
Right.
But the Cubs, they rebuilt the Cubs and Cincinnati rebuilt my life, and at the same time, rebuilt some finance, for me and my family and my dad and my mom. I mean, because I was lucky that I got those jobs, because I was paying $10,000-$12,000 a month, because in home care, because my dad didn't want to die in a hospital or a convalescent home.
Yeah.
So, I just believe that, I was there to take care of my dad, and then my mom was later. So, all those things happened. And plus, when I lost jobs, I started over again on some other things, but I was lucky because I got to marry my daughter in the backyard during that period of time when she was wanting to get married. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then next thing 10 years later, you get married by that tree in the backyard. I got to bury my dad. I was there, to bury my mom. I was there to bury my brother Vic, and so it was, even though I was off and I wasn't crazy about it, again, maybe I was supposed to be off, because like I said, everything is not in your control whether you think it is or not.
What made you start a business each time you lost a job? I know we've talked about that, and I always was inspired by the fact that you said, you're going to get to work right away each time you lost a managerial job. And then what also sort of has led you to these different career paths from a business perspective with regard to those businesses you've started?
Yeah, well, some things that led up to it. Like I say, my mom was I haven't told you, but my mom was a Black African Studies teacher at the college. She went back to school at 43 years old while I was playing ball. I was helping her. And at one time, I had my brother in school, my sister in school, my mom in school, all the same, in college all at the same time. And then my sister left and went to Colombia to be a missionary for like 12 years. That's why I went to Venezuela one time in between, to play ball. So what led me to that was some of my studies, like Marcus Garvey, and start things, especially where there weren't any, many Black people in that area.
I always loved Garvey in the fact that he focused on economics.
Correct. And so, it goes back to reading those books that my mom had around or made me read that I went crazy about reading, but then it left a lasting impression and impact on me. And so, the one I started the Baker Family Wines, because I was off and I had started. Yeah, go ahead, dude. Plus, there weren't many Black people in that industry, and so maybe my high school years, my last 2 high school years, had some impact on that, because you don't know, because it wasn't always good. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it could have been a lot better. And then the Baker Energy, I was curious about leaving a better carbon footprint for my kids, because I'm a hunter and fisherman, and I see the effects of what we've done to the environment. I see the effects of the lack of fish some years, the lack of pheasant or ducks, or global warming, which people don't want to see and face. And so also there weren't many Black people in this industry, in the energy field. So I always try to do some things. I mean, we're doing pretty good, not as good as I'd like to do.
Are you the only brother at the energy convention? with
a few, very few. Yeah, you've been there before yourself, probably.
Yes.
I mean, not for that, but in a similar situation.
I want to ask you, because I know I've always heard you talk about, hey man, what Mr. Aaron did for you and Cito and Ralph Garr, Colbert. I mean, and what was it? He said Henry told your mom that he was going to take care of you, right?
Well, I mean, he did. When I tried out, see, they flew my mom and I to LA. My dad said I wasn't going to sign. They had just got divorced. My dad told him to quit coming around the house because my boy is going to college. And so I had already signed a letter of intent to go to Santa Clara, play basketball. I was supposed to be on the team with Ralph, Dennis Autry and the Ogden brothers.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that.
They had a good team. And I was supposed to be the little guard, the little point guard on that team. And so it was 2 weeks to go before I was supposed to leave for school. And my dad had signed me up to go there. I didn't, that's not exactly what I wanted. And so my mom and I, they sent for us to go to LA. And, the night before the draft, I had said, hey, man, whatever happens, Lord, please don't let me get drafted by the Atlanta Braves, because I didn't want to go to the South at that time, and that's another negative, like I said, in my life. But it turned out to be a positive, because Hank Aaron, I mean, I couldn't have chosen a better place in my life. And they sent for me and my mom. I worked out in Dodger Stadium. Hank told my mom he would take care of me as if I was his son. And then I signed while I was down there, went back to the South, Austin, Texas, and Hub Kittle, who's from Yakima, Washington. I said, hey, call my dad. And he called my dad. My dad goes, hey, man, don't put some stranger on the phone to tell me what you should have told me if you were a man. And at that time, I was like, okay, well, I'm a man. I came home to go to college because I had to go to school, because Vietnam was hot then. You had to take 15 units per semester or else you were drafted. And so came home. I was served papers by this guy that I had to go to court. Me and my mom and our lawyer against my dad and his lawyer, and they tried to nullify my contract. So we didn't speak for like, no, I didn't speak, for like 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so during that period of time, that's when California invoked the Jackie Coogan child prodigy law when I was in court. It said that the parents couldn't spend all the kids' money, and then at 21, he gets his money. So that's what happened to me. They let me buy a car. They let me, I had an apartment at school. I came out in June, and then when I turned 21, the money tripled, and I started watching the stock market at that time because they invested in Standard Oil of California, which is Chevron now, and IBM stock, and then my money kind of tripled.
In some great ones early. Okay.
No, yeah, but I mean, it wasn't me. Like I said, I told you I always had somebody looking over me, whether I knew them or not. And so at 21, my money tripled, and I went and bought a piece of property, and I started talking to my dad again. And, I told him, I said, man, you hurt me when you did this and that. And at that point in time, it's the first time I ever heard my dad said he was hurt, or first time that I ever really heard that he told me that he loved me, because back in them days, men didn't tell other
You ain't
men
lying.
that they loved them.
Yeah, man.
And so my dad goes, hey, man, you hurt me when you wouldn't come inside and, see how I was doing. You drop your brothers and sisters off at the house, at my apartment. And I was like, well, maybe me and old dad is, got some feelings.
Yeah.
So, and, from that point on, we were tight until the day he died.
Yeah. That's a heck of a, so you're so right about that generation, man. Because you and I are not that far apart in age.
Well, that's what happened. Because I'd have a good game. I scored 30 points in basketball or scored 4 or 5 touchdowns. I said, Dad, how'd I do? And the best I got, pretty good. That's the best I got.
Yeah.
Huh? I said, wow. 4 touchdowns to be said pretty good. And you put up 35 points. That's.
Yeah. But your dad ever told you that you did great?
Are you asking Dave?
He's asking you.
Yeah, in AAU games, yes. I was always nervous when you would show up, because I didn't know which games you'd be at, because you were on the road calling games. Right. And then I had to bring it, extra. But yeah, you've told me great job, and when I put up a bunch of points. Yeah.
Did your dad? What about your dad? Did your dad ever tell you did great?
There were some games where I got the riot act read to me. You don't let them guys poke you like that and push you around like that, that kind of stuff. When I was in 7th and 8th grade. So believe me, by the time when I came into myself and had confidence, it was big enough, I tried to kill people in football. Like you said, I was a fullback, so and play tight end. So if I had a chance to, you do it,
I got you.
But it was not the thing I always tell these guys, that whatever I needed, it was done. And I can remember him supporting everything I did. Boy Scouts, altar boy, what you name it. You need, yeah, okay, I got you. Don't worry about it. Right, boom, 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 here, take it. So we had a relationship was good. I was scared of him in early years. He was 5'6", and he talked like he was John Wayne. He said,
hey man, my dad gave me the speech one day that I know you're not afraid of anybody, but you need to be afraid of somebody in this world. It might as well be me. And I was, he was right too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey. And then when I got to be, my father's about 5'6", 5'7", so when I got to be about 5'11", you may be bigger than I, but you want to mouth off like I'm gonna pick up a brick.
Right.
I was like, I'm good.
Hey man, don't mouth off, and especially don't mouth off to mama. You crazy?
Oh please. Oh
yeah.
I think I told you that story. The only time that my dad ever clocked me was I wanted to go visit a girlfriend, and I basically said I was at my buddy's. Long story short, I'm at my buddy's house, and then my mom called my buddy to find out I wasn't there. I was with the girlfriend. and I called my mom the B word. I was a dumb,
What?
I was a dumb 16-year-old. And Dusty, faster than you could blink, my dad was like, ah!
Man, you lucky you alive.
Yeah, Dad, you got Dad, and I never disrespected ever. I was a teenager then, but yeah.
That's when that's when the use happens when you're a teenager.
First and only,
you were mouthing off one time. I remember you. I don't know how old you were. You're probably like 16, and it was in front of the door, and he got up and got you by the shirt and be like, I forget. Yeah,
that's the same moment. It was a backhand, and I got you up the shirt.
Hey man, one day I was mouthing off to Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron told me something.
Yeah,
and so I said something smart back to him.
To Hank?
Yeah, and he grabbed me by my neck, like before I could even blink.
Yeah.
And he goes, sit down. I said, hey man, you better let me go. He says, okay, and then what? And I said, well, I'll think of something. So I never mouthed off to him again either.
That's too good.
Oh man,
it's like when the kids chase the pigeons, and you're like, what we're gonna do if they catch one?
Yeah, right.
I told you what then?
Unbelievable. Hey, Hank, Dusty, didn't Hank tell you about, I mean, like taking out to dinner, buying you suits and all that kind of stuff? I mean, he was that kind of a man, right?
Well, all the guys were at that time. I mean, unless you were a little smart mouth, these guys would take care of you. I mean, you know, I have a picture with Ralph Garr, myself, Clete Boyer, Bob Euchre. I was 19 and Ralph was maybe 22, 23. And, you know, we're all together and, you know, they would buy you a suit of clothes and we never paid for anything. We never paid for dinner, but at the same time, we had to take their bags to the room or whatever they, you know, wanted. And, you know, Satch was on I was September call-up and Satch was on the team. And
Satchel Paige, the Satchel Paige.
Yeah, in 68. And so, you know, he used to make me carry his fishing rods because people used to give him fishing rods all the time. And at the end of that September, he told me he's going to give me one. He never gave me nothing. But, you know, I would catch him in the bullpen and he would call me like Daffy. And I say, hey, man, my name is Dusty. He goes, Daffy, I know what your name is. So
that's the initiation.
I was hoping he wouldn't call me
right?
Daffy Duck. But see, back then, everybody, you know, had a nickname. And if they didn't give you a nickname, they didn't kind of razz you or take you out, that means they didn't like you.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, the more grief they gave it, because my name was Kid. I was the youngest guy on the team. I was in the big league call up at 19 years old, and I'm 20, 21, 22. So I was always the youngest guy on the team, and my name, you know, was the Kid. Very few of them called me Dusty. And say, hey, Kid, get over here. Or Rook, because they didn't call me Rook too much, but most of them called me Kid. But I mean, those are great times, and we tried to pass that on to the younger players, you know, when I was playing. And I was hoping that the younger players could turn that on to the guys now. I think the Latin players do it more than anybody. You know, they pass it on. They take the guys to dinner. They feed them, this and that. And there aren't enough black players to hardly continue that. And I don't know how the other players do. I mean, some of them do. I mean, some of the quality guys do. You know, that learn the right way.
They have the old school feel. I mean, they had appreciation.
Well, somebody gave it to them.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't just come up with that on your own. You know, I mean, you know, back in the day, you paid clubhouse dues. You tip guys. You know, if you're in a restaurant, you know, with a guy not making any money or his family, or, you know, in the restaurant, if the clubhouse guy is in there, you know, you don't let him pay for anything. And, you know, I got a story even when I was, I just called in yesterday. I got at my dad's wake and funeral, you know, my family thought that I had bought, you know, all the food.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're telling me, thank you. I didn't know what they were talking about. And then the next day after the funeral, that some more food showed up. So I asked the guy, I said, "Hey man, who did this?" And he told me Scott Rowland. And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Man, what a gesture." And I'd only known him for a few months on my team. And
With
so
Cincinnati, right?
yeah, when I called him yesterday again to ask him how was his second year in the Hall of Fame, and he said he's still a little nervous and he's still trying to get accustomed on knowing how to be a Hall of Famer.
Well, you're gonna be there, man. You're gonna be there. You're gonna be signing HOF after your name before long.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm still Dusty.
Hey, and how did you get Dusty? How did you get that name?
Well, there's an argument in my family. See, my dad never called me Junior, and there's only one John. My real name, Johnny B. Baker Jr. Well, my auntie said she gave it to me, and my Aunt Lorena and my mother said she gave it to me because I was playing in dirt all the time. They didn't want to call me Dirty, so they called me Dusty. And so the only people in my life and my family or anybody that calls me Johnny were guys I went to elementary school with because the teacher wouldn't call you by your nickname. And so if somebody's in the stands for years, if they said, "Hey, Dusty," I might just wave like this. But if they say Johnny, then they'll get my. And if they say Johnny B, then they really know me.
Yeah, McCarver used to say that all the time about you on the air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what was it like for you and the rest of the black players at that time? Because I know the numbers this year in the major leagues, like 60 black Americans. You were with a generation of stars. Aaron, you were one of them. But what was that time like as compared to now?
It was now things are a little spread out, a little separated. And I hear sometimes guys will come to me and they'll say, "Hey man, I really don't have anybody that I have, to hang with or, much in common." I always had Ralph Garr coming forward. Right. I mean, we were together like almost every day, every level. And it can get a little lonesome, sometimes. That's why that's why on my staff, I always wanted a diversified staff. So there was somebody that you could talk to. I wanted a Spanish speaking, I wanted a black dude, I wanted a white country boy that, somebody can talk to. I mean, if you can't talk to one of my staff members, then you have a problem. Back in that time, all the guys hung together. We'd go to Chicago and I'd always be with Hank. And so we'd go see Billy Williams, Ernie Banks, and so and so. And then we go to New York. There was Cleon Jones and Tommy A.G. and also Jerry Kuzma. And he was always he was a friend of Hank's. And then we go to Cincinnati. There'd be Pete Rose. We'd go to dinner. Griffey Senior, Joe Morgan. Then we'd go to Pittsburgh, and there was Willie Stargell and Al Oliver and Gene Klein. So it was, and we talked baseball.
Yeah.
And, we go to San Francisco. There's Bobby Bonds and Willie McCovey and Mays. And so, wherever we went, a lot of times you hung out to eat, to talk, but also when you're in these towns that you don't know, you could be in the wrong part of town, man, and don't even know it. Next thing you know, so you got to know somebody in that town on where to go.
Yeah.
And especially if you're gonna hang out in the neighborhood someplace, where you might feel the most comfortable, because you don't want to feel uncomfortable someplace. You got to know where to go and go with somebody that's going to give you, say, "Hey, he's with me. Boom, I don't want nothing to happen to him."
Somebody to vouch for you.
Oh yeah, that was big. I mean, that was real big because people, they know when you're from out of town.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then if you dress a little different, I mean, you're a target. So, but it was, we never had any problems because we were always with the right dudes on the other team.
Yeah, that reminds me. You were calling a game with Derek Dickey, and that always stuck with me when you were in the bar, he's in the restroom, and somebody told.
Oh yeah. So I'm doing a basketball game. It was in North Central Penn. It was at Bucknell University, and I'm doing it. It was East Coast Conference Championship game. And I go to the head and I come back and a guy, and while I'm in there, as I'm washing my hands, the guy said, it's a good thing you guys are in here now because the Klan was in here a little while ago. I was like, Lord have mercy. North Central Pennsylvania.
Right.
And it was just me and Jarett. We're doing a game on ESPN. I'm like, oh Lord, I didn't really need to hear that. Well, maybe I did need
Nah,
it.
maybe, yeah, shit.
Yeah, it didn't need it.
Don't need it. Don't ever need it. Yeah, come back here again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could happen anywhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's the thing
yeah.
that people don't understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it can happen. I remember one time I think I had Ed Goodson and Bill Buckner with me, and so we went to see Funkadelic at Pittsburgh up on the hill up there.
Up on the hill, yeah.
Yeah, you know that.
On the hill with Will, yeah.
And so
Pittsburgh.
man, and so we got separated, and they're like, "Hey, man, we're looking for you, man." I said, "Okay." I just went to the bathroom and said, "Man, we're the only white dudes in here." I said, "Man, that's how it is damn near every day for me."
Yeah.
And so then you start laughing because they didn't think about, the role.
Hey, being on the other side.
Yes,
Hey,
exactly.
Dusty, you told me an awesome story, and Jordan and I, as you know, are bluish for Black and Jewish. So what you did in terms of helping somebody feel that warmth and love on your team, Alex Bregman, what did you do for him on? I think it was Rosh Hashanah a couple of years
Right.
ago.
I mean, I love Alex Bregman. I mean, he's, he's. I think I bring him matzo ball soup when he's.
Nice.
When he's sick, and crepe lots and
Grandpa.
I was
Yeah,
with with the family and doing Rosh Hashanah and having some matzo ball soup, and you called me. You said, "Hey, I just want to wish you Happy New Year, Sweet New Year." And I'm eating matzo ball soup, and you told me I had just had some with Alex Bregman. I said that.
And some potato latkes. I mean, I know food.
Yeah.
I bring whatever you're supposed to bring on Passover,
right?
And stuff. And so that's one thing I learned from Lasorda is how to bring people together with food.
Yeah,
and,
Hispanic players too, right? Those last couple of years with Houston, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing that forever and ever. Guys say, "Hey man, why you do that?" And that's kind of way to have guys get together.
Yeah,
and
absolutely,
and sort of break down the barriers of race. And I remember my mother; she made me read this book, "The Economics and Politics of Race," which is one of the best books I read when I was like 19, 20 years old. It sort of gave me a better perspective, and also it was reinforced by my time in the Marines. I was in the Marines for 6 years, from 69 to 75. And to me, that breaks down most of the barriers of race, because if somebody has to, or even religion, if somebody has to guard your back in wartime, which I didn't have to go, but my unit was close to being called up in Nam. I mean, that is the epitome of teamwork. I mean, you may not like a guy, you may not like his religion, but you may not like his color, you may not like anything about him, but you need each other to get home safely. When you get home, I mean, who knows if you're going to associate with him or not, but I mean, that is the epitome of teamwork.
You are speaking of leadership in that way. Just curious, what one piece of advice, would you give to leaders, regardless of what area they're in, business or sports, or what's one piece of advice you give to leaders?
Well, to be firm but fair, I think. Firm but fair, but also just try not to forget what it was like, when you were in their shoes. And the leaders are supposed to serve and not necessarily be served, which it seems like there are a few leaders around that relish the fact about being served versus serving people.
Hey, a couple things before we let you go. You got the Bob Gibson story about Henry Aaron told you what not to do when facing Gibson. Tell that story real quick.
No, but I had a 17-game hitting streak, and I haven't had one since. But I was facing Bob Gibson, and Hank told me, "Hey, man, he called him Hoot." And well, first first we went to, I was called up, let me see, no, it was in spring training when the Cardinals used to train with the Mets in St. Petersburg. And so we got in early on the bus. I think I had just hit 325 in AAA, and Hank said, "You want to go with us?" I said, "Yeah, man, heck yeah." And so we went out, to watch the game. Bob Gibson was pitching against the Mets. And so he hit John Milner right in the back. Bam. And so after the game, we're sitting there, and I'm just like a bump on the log. He goes, "Man, why did you hit that young boy?" John Miller loved Hank Aaron. He used to run like we used to call the Hammer. And Bob Gibson's like told him, "Man, I heard he could hit. I want to get him in line for the season." So I'm like, "Well, damn, what did he hear about me?" And so, because I hit 325, I think Miller hit like 320. I was like, "Oh Lord!" So now I got a 17-game hitting streak later on in the year. So Hank says, "Look, Dusty, if you get in, you're facing who?" He says, "Do not dig in. He don't like that." I said, "Okay." He said, "Don't bunt on him because he don't like that either." I said, "Okay." He said, "Don't hit one back to the box because he really don't like that." I'm like, "Well, dang." And then he goes, "And if you hit a home run off of him, you run around bases. Don't run too fast. Don't run too slow. And then go up in the clubhouse if you're going to be smiling and celebrating because he'll drill you the next time he sees you." And I said, "Okay, Hank, anything else?" He goes, "Yeah, well, one more thing. If he happens to hit you, do not go out there and charge the mound because he's a Golden Glove boxer and he'll embarrass you." I'm like, "Oh, heck, what can I do?" You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so my 17-game hitting streak ended that night.
That's a lot to keep in your head, man. Oh God, that's such a great story. And finally winning the World Series.
Yep.
What did that and what does that mean to you?
Well, number one, it meant I remember when we lost in 2002, and my dad, back then, negative motivation was kind of the sign of the times a little bit, where the guys would tell you what you can't do. I mean, now if you tell them what they can't do, they'll just quit on it, But then back in the day, you're like, "Hey, I'll show you." And so my dad said, "Hey, man, if you didn't," after the game, a couple of weeks after we played, he goes, "Son, if you didn't win that one, I don't know if you'll ever win." Because we had it.
He did.
Yeah. And I didn't show any reaction. That's always stuck in my mind. And so, number one, I wanted to prove my dad wrong. And then number two, I wanted to win last year because my motivation was to try to match Cito Gaston back to back. And then Cito was like one of my guys that really took care of me from the first day I got in pro ball. And I went to Austin, Texas. I was 18 at that time. That was my first year. That's when Hub Kittle called my dad, I told you about, from Yakima. Yeah. And so Cito told me, he says, "Hey, man." And my first game that I played was Little Rock. And then there's only 2 weeks left in that season. And so on Thursday night, no, the first ball hit to me, I dropped it. And then they start calling me a bunch of names, man, and I ain't never even heard before. Some of them I'm like, "Damn, that's pretty good." And so, they were all lined up in right field beside me. So I started crying. I wanted to go home. I told Cito, I said, "Man, I want to go home. I'm gonna call my mama." And he goes, "No," I said, "It's too late, son. I mean, you're gonna have to gut it out." And so he goes, "I'll take care of you." And he did. And just like I had Hank, and just like I had Cito, and I had Ralph, and Ralph taught me how to deal in the South because Ralph was from Louisiana. And so to me, at that time, I was, pretty angry and pretty militant about things, especially hanging out in Haight-Ashbury and Berkeley, and everything was nonconformity. I mean, to the max. And so Ralph helped me, and then Cito really helped me. But to come to find out that those people that were getting on me, booing me out there and calling me all the names, well, they had a mental institution right next to the ballpark. And so they would all come to the game on that Thursday and they put him in right field.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, so now I don't
Genius.
feel quite so bad.
Oh my God. Way to get a competitive advantage.
Yeah, right.
Oh my.
Yeah, they had a guy named Willie, and see, never forget him. And he used to hook slide into the tire on the bus, you know, on the cement, on the asphalt. I'm like, man, that's that same guy that was getting on me.
Dusty,
When
hey,
you get,
one thing.
yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
I'm just curious. Haight Ashbury, you mentioned. Well, so
Yeah.
what years were you hanging out around then?
65, 66, 67, 68.
Okay.
And
Okay. So,
Hendrick story.
yeah, I mean, that was, the hate was going on. And plus, and we had moved from Riverside to Sacramento because my dad's job got transferred. And so, the dudes that I grew up with, they were going to the hate. And we go to Fillmore, Winterland, and see concerts almost every weekend. And I mean, it was a good scene. The only time, I mean, my dad would let me go and my mom would let me go just as long as, I was safe. And as long as they told me don't go to Berkeley because my dad didn't want me, hanging out because, that was pretty radical for that time. But that was our first stop was in Berkeley because, I was probably a little radical too. Like I identified more with the so-called radicals than I did with with the
Establishment.
yeah.
Yeah.
did you ever cross paths with any of the Manson family? Any of those folks up there?
No, my mom did. My mom taught Black Studies at the Vacaville federal facility, and so my mom, I think she said she crossed paths with them. I didn't want to cross paths with them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah.
But I did want to cross paths with, Angela Davis and H. Rap Brown and Sing Q and back in that day.
Did you ever connect with any of those folks?
No. I did connect during that time though with Hank. Like I said, I was always with Hank. I did connect with Jimmy Carter, who was the governor at that time of Georgia, the ambassador Andrew Young,
Wow.
Ted Abernathy, Herman Russell, Jesse Jackson, Reverend Cecil Williams. So I was kind of like the little kid that was along with Hank. And
Right.
to this day, I'm real good friends with Ambassador Young, that I was just with a meeting with him. Well, dinner with him about a month ago. Like I said, I've been so blessed, to be around these people, and they have influenced me sometimes where I really can't explain where I get my ideas from because the average person is not going to understand. So you don't even waste your time unless they inquire. Now, if they inquire, then it's like you guys. I mean, you ask me questions, because if you volunteer things, a lot of times people think that you're just name dropping her.
Dusty, I want to go before we go. I want to get back. Let me just go back one couple steps. You win the World Series. Does that get you in the Hall of Fame? It does for me. Does that get you?
I don't know. I wanted to win too. Something. I don't even think about the Hall of Fame. I'll let other people talk about that because see, I don't like disappointment. And when you're talking, when people talk about, hey man, Dusty has 5 different teams. There should have been 5 different teams. There should only been about 2, maybe 3 max. You know what I mean? And Dusty's like 3 managers a year. Well, when you do a good job and when you don't. And to me, I mean, I got manager of the year, all 3 of those when I was with the Giants. So I didn't get a manager of the year afterwards with the Cubs, with Cincinnati, with Houston, with anybody. So to me, in my heart, I really got 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah, and the other thing too, we were talking before we came on that you're with the Cubs, then they go in another couple of years and win the World Series. You're with the Nationals, take them right there, they go in and win the World Series.
Right.
Houston situation is, you guys, that organization is vilified, for what happened in 17. They bring you in as a savior, and then you go on and you take them to 2 World Series and win one. I mean,
well, like the Cincinnati and the Cup. I mean, they let me go too early.
sure did.
Yeah. Now the San Francisco one, I talked to Bill Walsh, who was like one of my mentors. Him and Al Adels on coaching, and Dr. Jack Ramsey. People I knew I could talk to and get the straight up scoop. They told me that sometimes, well, Bill did, that sometimes you have, not sometimes, he says, you need to change teams about every 5 or 7 years, because after that period of time, there are things about you that they don't like, and there are things about them that you may not like.
Is that front office, or is that message going stale with players?
I had less problem with the players than I had with anybody, because I'm one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'll always be one of them. But not that I'm not the front office, but unless you've been with the players, and unless you get down and dirty with the players, or you were a player yourself, the average person don't even really know how the player thinks. Or what they aspire to, what motivates them, or what may piss them off. You know what I mean? And so you have to be able, just like the military, you have to be able to think with the enlisted man. You can't just think with the officers, because there's more enlisted men than there are officers. You know what I mean? And there are more players than there are anybody else. Now the number's growing. Now it's almost even.
Yeah, in terms of, I know you guys are carrying 15, 20 coaches anymore.
Yeah, but something you mentioned, Houston. Houston was one of the things that that was a job that if you'd have told me that job was going to open up, it would have been impossible. Because most of the time, especially, well, anybody, but especially a minority, if you're going to inherit a job, it's going to be a second division job. It's not going to be a top of the line. You got a chance to win right away. You got to rebuild it. And if it had not been for the scandal, Houston would have never come and got me. And again, just like my coaching career started, I was the right guy at the right place. And they're like, well, Dusty, he's the right guy for this job. Well, why is that the only job that I was the right guy for? So.
I've seen it in my career, Dusty, off the football, baseball, basketball. Yeah, that's the story. Yeah.
Yeah, but something, hey, you wouldn't be how you are now, or to pass it on to Jarett and Jordan, and for them to pass it on if you don't go through those lessons.
Agreed.
And like Buck O'Neil, like I talked to Buck, and he would like be happy and not bitter about anything. And he was like, I asked him, I said, man, how you doing this? And he goes, Dusty, you got to feel that everything that's happened, good and bad, is for a purpose in your life or somebody else's life to help them.
Oh, by the way, I got to say this. I want to put this on the record. I believed in this, and it was told to me, and I said, boy, it's a great thought. 2 best ambassadors we have in baseball right now, you and Bob Kendrick. Because Bob Kendrick has a PhD in Buck O'Neil.
Oh, yeah.
He's emblematic of a lot of good things.
Hey, man, I love Bob Kendrick, because every team I was on, and when we played Kansas City, I take the coaches and front office people, and I tell you a story. When I was in Washington, I invited a bunch of guys to go with us, and
the Little League Museum.
Yeah, and then one of the only players to show up beside the coaches was Bryce Harper. And I was like shocked on how much history that he knew. I mean, this guy knew as much about the players and history as I knew, and I lived that day.
Right.
Beginning of a lot of this ending, and that's always been on my mind and really impressed me. He
was the only one that showed up to go with you. Good night. Wow. Well, I feel like there's so much more that you're biting your tongue on. I want to hear the rest of it. I want
That's
to hear.
enough.
Oh Lord, is it true, Dusty, that you? I know the Manuel family, the Baker family, very
Yeah.
close through the years.
Oh yeah, I mean Jerry's up the street from me. He's my neighbor, and the Manuals, man, they had some bad boys over there. Just like I had two brothers, and that's how I hurt my knee, which almost ended my career when I got traded from the Braves to the Dodgers, and I was like a week. I had just gotten home, and in the offseason, you played basketball to stay in shape back then. You know, it's like, hey, mom, I got to go train. Well, just go play basketball.
Yep.
Not knowing, and my mom would always warn me, you better leave that basketball alone and see that basketball. Cheech and Chong, when they had like Basketball Jones back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had it bad. You know, I mean, when basketball get in you, it's tough getting out. I don't care what you do.
Oh, yeah.
And so I hurt my knee slamming on Jerry, and I came wrong, and that almost cost me my career. Even before I started. And in my first year in LA, I was getting booed every day, and you know, I didn't tell the truth about how I hurt my knee, but the trainer knew, and the trainer helped save my career.
Who was the trainer?
Dr. Bill Bueller. And the next year, after I had my operation, I was in the cast all that winter of '76. He met me at the Dodger Stadium, which is about 45 minutes from my house every day. We ran from the bottom of the stairs, once my cast came on, to the top of the stairs at Dodger Stadium, all the way at the very top. And then he trained with me every day. But then he stumped me one day, and he says, hey, Dusty, you know, your dog, how'd you hurt your leg again? I said, well, I hurt it. I was trying to simulate. I was running down by the river, and there's a creek, like you got to jump over, and my dog stopped, but I kept going, and I came down wrong on my knee. So he goes, wow, man, that's great. He goes, you know, did your dog get an assist? So I was like,
how did he know?
I don't know. I knew. All I knew is that he knew by the injury that I had. And so he told me, he said, look, he said, don't lie to me anymore. It's the same thing my coach told me in college. He says, in high school, he says, man, you give me a chance to understand. And there's a good chance that I've probably already done and tried what you are already doing. And that's what I would tell my kids. My team sometime. I didn't have a bunch of rules, but my rules were, you know, don't lie to me, number one, because the same rule that I broke and shouldn't have. And the second thing, show up to work on time, give me all you got. And hey man, no alibi, no excuses, just get the job done.
You dunking on Jerry, you know, before you got hurt.
Jerry could play. Let me tell you, Jerry was a bad boy.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a bad boy. He was a quarterback. I mean, Jerry Manuel was bad, man. The school he went to had him, Jeff Jenkins, Max Venable. Randy Lurch. Who else?
Lurch. Wow.
Wolf. I mean, man, Cordova had some bad. They had some bad boys over there.
Good player.
So, Sacramento got some bad boys. Period. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you're the mayor. You know, when you walk around Sacramento, they all come to you.
Well, I'm the oldest. I'll say that.
Hey, well, you and George Wells. Yeah. Veteran.
All right, guys. I got to get back to work.
Hey, man. Thank you so much. We thoroughly
appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Dusty.
You have now done the Sims podcast. You're off the hook now. You're good.
Yeah.
Well, we told you Dusty Baker would be good. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We talk about the great ambassadors of the game of baseball as we speak. Got to be Dusty Baker and Bob Kendrick from the Negro Leagues Hall of Fame and Museum in Kansas City. Two of the very best. Fellas, was that a treat or what, talking to Mr. B?
This was my first time interacting with him. I know you guys have a previous relationship, so it was he was super personable. That was the big thing I took away from him. I could see why if I played for him, it would Yeah, I guess I can see why players love him so much. Yeah, why he's been so successful.
Dusty has an aura, right? He's got a glow. He's got a thing. Like, you just don't come across people like that often. And so, it was a lot of fun chatting with him.
Folks, a reminder, like and subscribe on your platforms where you get your podcast, and on Apple and Spotify and YouTube. That'll do it for this edition of the Hey Now podcast for Jarett and Jordan Sims. I'm Dave Sims. See you next time.